So, Pete, I've kind of put you on the spot today because I've known you. Actually, I don't know how many years it is now. How many years
7 or 8 years,
is it?
I think.
7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
And I first met you when you came on the radio show that I used to have.
Sunday morning, London
Sunday
Bridge.
mornings, yeah. That was quite something, wasn't it, to be up early on a Sunday morning?
I think we had a gig the night before as well, so.
Did you?
I think so.
God, yeah. So I met you there with Wolf Club Lunar Society. But actually, even on that show, I don't think I ever really got a chance to properly ask you about how you became, got so in love with the blues. And I definitely know, though, you come from a very musical family. So yeah, just tell me then about how and what happened from being little. What your memories? What happened to
how
you,
long
Pete?
have you got? What happened? I think growing up, my dad was a sort of a musician in the 50s in Scotland, and he had a band when he was about sort of 17, 18, and they were called the Rocking Disciples, I think. So this is 1957, 1958, 59. So they were a proper rock and roll band at the time, and so it came from my dad. It totally, absolutely came from my dad. And growing up, obviously this is years later. Growing up, he always had a guitar in the cupboard. It was an old Hofner Senator, which was his guitar, which is now 64 years old, I think, 63 years old. And I had it for a little while, but I've given it back to him because I just don't want to have it in the house, because it's just I don't want to lose it or do anything to it.
Does it have a beautiful sound?
Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah, it's great. It was the everyone had, John Lennon had one. Everyone had one. All those old. All the ones who came through in the 60s, they started off on Hofners because they were the cheap makes, weren't they? So this guitar was always in the house, and occasionally come home from the pub or come in from work, and he'd get it out and play the few chords that he knew, and sing away, and it'd always be like a rock and roll song or something, an Elvis song without a doubt, and so that was always there. And then growing up as well, there was always music in the house as well. There was always Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and Chuck Berry and all those old kind of rock and rollers, because that's what my dad was into. So I heard that this would have been in the 70s, so I heard all of that at the time. So that's
such high
kind of what I knew,
then, wasn't it?
So that was so that's what so that's that's sort of late 50s, early 60s music, isn't it? So so I knew that, and then I got interested in sort of playing the guitar. So Dad showed me a few chords. And then as you get older, you're aware of the kind of this music that you've heard growing up, and then you do meet other people along the line, don't you? When so when I was about 11 or 12, I had a friend at school who was like the coolest kid in the world because he knew everything about music. You thought at the time. So by the time we were sort of 12 or 13, we were listening to like Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin and people like that, and we thought we were great. This is in the 80s now. Yeah. It's not the 60s, it was the 80s. And so, but then going listening to that, and then you're thinking, oh, hold on a minute, this got some relation to the other stuff from the 50s. It's kind of the same, something going on there. And then when you do make that link, obviously you got the first album, you got a couple of blues songs, Led Zeppelin, first album, obviously Red House by Jimi Hendrix and things like that. And if you're interested, and if you're really interested, and you dig deep, and if you're into it and you get into it, you go back, don't you? You don't. You literally go back, and you go, well, where did they, where did Red House come from, or something like that? Where did that come from? So, and you go back, and then you go back to the 50s. Then all of a sudden you find out there was something 20 years before that, or 30 years before that. And like, this is amazing. So obviously this is years later when you're reading books, you never really internet then, did you? You go to the library, I used to go up to HMV or Virgin or something in the 80s and just steal books or just the ones that you wanted. And but I do remember going to one of the record shops up there, and I was about 13 or 14, I think, and there was 2 tapes, and they were called 100 Minutes of the Blues, so it would have been 200 Minutes of the Blues. And it was a compilation of all mainly chess stuff at the time, I think. So it would have been mostly chess. And I've still got them actually. And they just look fascinating. And I recognised a couple of the songs because obviously they'd been covered
Yes,
you know, 20, 30, 40 years afterwards. And I thought, I'm going to buy these tapes, and you know, what little pocket money I had, you know, it's weird to think like a 12, 13-year-old would go to a shop and buy these
blues.
You know, and when it was all kind of, you know, pop or new wave or something at the time, and but I remember buying these tapes and putting them on, and all of a sudden, you know, you get something like Elmore James come on, or you know, Managed Boy, Muddy Waters, and you've got headphones on, and you're just like, what is this, you know? And if you don't feel that in you at the time, then you're never going to get it. But I think, that's what stayed with me ever since, really. That was there.
So that made complete sense to you as a 12-year-old. It just sort of
I didn't
in some way.
understand what they were singing about so much.
The feeling you got.
Yeah, it is just that, you know, that visceral feeling, and it's just, it hits you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
it really does.
Hits you like a thump, you know, it's an emotion. And, you know, it's not technically amazing, even though I didn't even know what that was then at the time, but you can't play like that. You can practice for 100 years. You can't play like that. You can't replicate what they did at the time. You know, you can do as many covers as you want. You can get the right gear. You can get the old vintage equipment. You can't play like that. It's the feeling. It's of the time. It's the lives they led. And even though you don't understand it at the time, it comes through. That comes through in the music, doesn't it? It totally comes through. And as I say, if you don't get it, then you're never going to get it.
Never going to get it. No.
So that was probably the start. So with those kind of 2 or 3, you know, with Dad, a couple of friends, and then finding a couple of tapes, and being into, you know, more of a rock type thing that, you know, that took everything from before. That was it, really. And then trying to sort of learn to play the guitar at some stage.
I was going to say, what age did you think actually I want to be able to play some of this?
Because my dad knew, what chords did he know? He knew.
So what did he, when he was the musician then, what instrument did he play?
He played guitar.
Yeah.
Played an acoustic guitar, but he had, you know, another guitarist, a sax player, a drummer, a bass player, so it was all around. So he was a singer. He was, you know, he's you know, he had a, you know, fantastic voice, you know.
I never realised that. I don't think I ever knew that.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
I think in my head I always thought he was a guitarist.
No, he was singing. Yeah, it was mainly a prop. I mean, you kill me to say that, but it was mainly a prop.
Yeah,
you know,
just to strum a few chords
but yeah, he was a fantastic singer, and as an aside, I think they got offered a summer season, one of the seaside towns somewhere in the north of England.
Yes.
And at that time they were like 17, 18, so it was a choice to make. You either go and take a chance, or you finish your apprenticeship, or you get a job. And a couple of them said, can't take the chance, you know, so it never happened. So you don't know, do you? You know?
Because back then there were so many venues, there was so much work to be had.
So a summer season on a pier somewhere would have been, you know, could make or break you, you know. It would have been an experience, but, you know, potentially in those days, if you did that, you'd be on the back foot, wouldn't you? If you come out of that and you get nothing, you're behind and you're struggling, you know. So they didn't want to take the chance. So it's, you know, a real shame. But the good thing that came out of it, he still kept the guitar, and
passed on the love to you of it.
And he showed me a few chords. You knew C, F, and G7. That was amazing when he showed me G7. Like, G7. I was like, what's going on there? You know, he showed me a few things. But at school, I learned the clarinet. I used to play the clarinet. Like bizarrely, I don't know why. I think it's probably. I just started playing the clarinet.
I did the clarinet as well, funny enough.
Yeah, I think because at primary school we played recorders.
Yes, it would be the natural progression, or is it because they had a lot of clarinets though?
Probably, they had a deal with
instruments there were.
And it was, I think it was from primary school playing recorders. I was always into music, and I tried playing the cello at one stage as well. And then secondary school, I started off in the oboe actually. I started playing the oboe, and that was really nice. But then, like, the cool kids were playing the clarinet and obviously moving up to the saxophone as well, so I quite like those. And so I played clarinet for a few years. And my teacher was Don Rendell, who was, he was quite a famous jazz player in the 50s. I didn't know at the time, but he was just our clarinet teacher.
Yes.
And he was cool because he taught us Pink Panther and things like that, you know. And but you could tell he had something about him. And it was only years later I realised he was, if you look at, you know, old gig listings from the 100 Club or the Marquee. Every week, Don Rendell's band, and he played with Billie Holiday when she came over.
Oh my goodness!
You know, I didn't know that. I was like 13, 14 when he was teaching me, I would have not played clarinet. I would have just sat and talked to him about stuff,
all his stories.
And he played all over the world. He's like really quite a famous saxophonist, amazing. And I wish I think he only died a few years ago. So he was quite old when he died. But yeah, it's funny. Just you get, and that's the thing, isn't it? You meet people who have had touch points in the past, so you kind of have that bit of reflected glory, don't you? Like me and Sandy say when we play at the 100 Club, you go and stand on the spot where Son House played. It's just like because that's as close as you can really get to it. It's a bit tragic in a way, but that's if you're into it, that's what you do.
God,
it's like absolutely. any type, art or anything at all. If you're into it, you do want to almost you want to get as close to it as you possibly can.
Try and breathe in somehow
exactly.
what they were feeling, or
make you play slightly better or something. But it's weird. But so I played, it's a long aside, but I played clarinet for a little while, but I had guitar at home, and I always remember a guitar teacher came in to one of our music lessons, and he had a few guitars with him, and he showed us like a little shuffle, like, this is amazing, I knew 3 chords, but I didn't know you could do that, and we were playing this shuffle, and then he showed me like a little bit of lead. He was just going like that, and it was I did that. I just did that, So within 20 minutes, we were playing like an E to A shuffle or something, and it was amazing. It was brilliant. So I thought, right, that's it. Forget clarinet's gone. Got my dad's guitar out, and I think I played it ever since. I think I made a pickup out of an old headphone and I plugged it into my stereo. It sounds like I'm from the 40s. This was like the mid 80s, but and then played that for a little while, and then I wanted a white Stratocaster, any white Stratocaster, because I obviously loved Jimi Hendrix. I wanted a white Stratocaster, and I think I'd saved up a bit of money. My dad said, kind of pay the rest. And we went up to Ealing. I think it was in Hanwell, one of the shops up there. And I was about 14, I think. And we went up to the shop, and they had a white Stratocaster, and it was a Japanese one. I've still got it actually. I just fixed it about 6 months ago, and I got that, and I think I played this little shuffle, and then obviously the fellow in the shop, he was like going all over, like, even then they were sorts, weren't they? And so I got this Stratocaster. Didn't have an amp, but I just plugged it into my stereo, and then eventually got an amp. And then just I always had that guitar, I had my dad's acoustic, and I had that white Strat, and that was it really. And I was happy, I just wanted I played along with record, like as you do, you just play along with records. Didn't have internet in those days. You bought or stole what you could from Virgin and HMV, and learnt from books or learnt from records. Learnt as best you could. I never had a lesson, and I wish I had. Because,
do you? What do you think you
in a way,
missed?
because sometimes there's because you can bluff anything, can't you? Really, but. There's sometimes there's something there's like a big gap in your knowledge, so which is not bad in a way, because you can go and find out what you need to know anyway. But you do see I was kind of always sort of jealous of those people who just pick up a guitar and just like sort of play away, and just really know what they're doing rather than having to constantly think about it all the time. But over the years you fill the gaps, don't you? But,
absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know whether it would have been a good thing or not. Wouldn't have hurt, I suppose.
It's funny because Sandy often says that he'd like to have had some lessons, because he's self-taught as well, and he's like you, he's constantly looking at things to try and gain, as you said, certain little gaps. But then,
you go back to obviously like the blues people, and he would have just been watching people or listening to people. It would have been really. I wouldn't imagine there'd be formal lessons, or anything written down at all. It would just been verbal or watching or just playing along.
And starting to gig very early as well. So you just had to get on with it and learn very quickly.
So if it was good enough for them and the stuff they came out with, then definitely good enough for us.
Absolutely.